is The Hub on Hollywood. I'm James.
I'm Jamie.
And we love movies.
James, I'm here in my little home sequester, my coronavirus fort.
Now, you're not on quarantine, but,
No, I'm on maternity leave. I'm still on maternity leave. But it's convenient.
Yeah, it is convenient. And in the future, with how things are progressing, this may be the safest thing just to do forever, apparently.
Right.
Just, isolate ourselves.
We'll never give high fives again, James.
Oh, no. Air high five. Can we do an air high
five? There we go.
Okay, that'll work. Okay.
Woo.
Well, this is a really jam-packed episode. We're trying to squeeze in a lot in a short amount of time. But on this episode of The Hub on Hollywood, we will be, of course, mentioning casting calls. We apparently have a plethora of casting calls this week.
Is right.
We're also going to be talking about the big, headline worldwide coronavirus. And not only is it continuing to spread, but we are talking about how it's affecting major motion pictures. It's affecting screenings, publicity tours, as well as conventions, big movie Comic-Con conventions. We will be talking about that. I know. And we will be talking about ancient caves. We have a colleague of ours who has written and produced a documentary that's going to be making its way to museums and science centers all across the country, and it's narrated by Bryan Cranston. And so we will be talking to a Mr. Art Cohen about that project. But first,
and one last thing, there is some happy news squeezed in there about Thor 4, so stay tuned for that. But first, casting calls.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Yeah, despite everyone being told to stay indoors, there are a number of productions that are here in the New England area, and they continue through it all to be shooting. So we have a number of productions that are looking for people in the coming weeks. It's not clear whether or not they're going to cancel these. So far they have not. They're pushing through. So we'll see if that remains the case. First off, we've got the feature film thriller Shrine that's being filmed in Central Mass. They're shooting a scene in Sudbury at an inn there. It's very old location, historic to the area. They're going to be shooting through March 31st. They're looking for a church organist. If you are a church organist, go ahead and log on to bostoncasting.com and sign up for that. They are looking for you. The TV series pilot Julia is looking for SAG extras for March 29th. You will likely have to have a fitting prior to that. Julia takes place in 1962, so they are asking people to be mindful of your hair and your facial hair for that, if you'd like to be a part of that. Boston Casting is also looking for a photo double. Caucasian woman, 60 to 80 years old, 5'5" to 5'7", between 150 to 185 pounds, plays $200, and that's for Thursday, Monday, and Tuesday next week in March. So if you are a Caucasian woman, 68 to 80, 5'5" to 5'7", send your picture and a photo of your hands, a photo of yourself and your hands, ooh, exciting, to bostoncastingfrills@gmail.com. That's always fun. CP Casting is looking for leads for a film called Harvest Moon. So this is exciting. It's called, the premise of the movie is trapped in a cruel workers' colony on a dying planet. Migrant sisters Anna and Claire learn kindness is the only way to better the world. And that's going to be filming here in Massachusetts. They're looking for people to audition for the roles of Anna, and a couple of supporting roles. They would like you to send your headshot and resume if you're interested in auditioning. This is for a real audition for lines for real roles. Harvest Moon BFA@gmail.com for that one. Also looking for actors and background performers or in front of the camera performers. Slate Casting is building their digital database. They would like digital headshots and resumes from SAG-AFTRA members. They want you to send your headshot and resume as a single PDF file to slatecasting.sagaftrasubmit@gmail.com. And one last thing, there's a TV series still looking for Caucasian twins and triplets. 3 to 6 months old, shooting March 19th in the Boston area. If you've got little babies or little nieces and nephews that fit that description, go ahead and send to bostoncasting2@gmail.com. James.
Jamie.
That was a lot.
That is a lot. I haven't signed up for Boston Casting or CP Casting.
Yeah, CP or Slate.
Yeah, I need to though. I feel like my life's already too busy,
shame.
but I keep hearing all these casting calls. I'm like, I could do that. I think I could do that too.
Absolutely. I can stand. I'm going to be doing a scene for Shrine tomorrow, actually. I'm going to be playing a bar patron. And that's something anybody can do. Just sit in the background, go, woo! Hey, how you doing?
They're like, man.
You know, and then
they're like,
whip
man,
out your
please don't drink
sanitizer.
it. Please don't drink the alcohol. It's not real alcohol. They're like, I've been pregnant for 9 months.
I learned that the hard way. It's not real. It's like food coloring and God knows what else. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
But
one thing you should do is subscribe.
Is wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands. Yeah, after you're done washing your hands, use those clean fingers to follow us, Hub on Hollywood. We are on all the social media platforms. We're on Instagram, on Twitter at Hub on Hollywood. You can also find us on Facebook as well. And we're on YouTube. If you're watching us right now, please hit us, give us that like, give us that subscribe. It really does help out a lot. If you're on the go. And you don't have time to watch us, Jamie or my face on YouTube, you can listen to us on every major streaming podcast service there is, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple iTunes, everywhere.
All of the above.
All of the above. Do you listen to us on the iHeartRadio app?
See, James, I'm a very vain person, so I really need to see my face up in lights.
Ah, yeah.
And I watch us on YouTube on my television right here in my beautiful living room with all the toys. But yes, I know a number of people who enjoy listening to us in podcast form, particularly on planes, apparently.
Nice.
This has happened a few times, so we always appreciate that. Woo! It's a fun little thing to keep your mind off of everything else that's going on at the moment.
I know, really.
And get you through that trip to where you're going.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching or listening to us, again, those casting calls, be sure to, if they sound like, some roles that you want to fill, email. If you think you know somebody who is interested or could possibly like doing extra work, send them the link to Hub on Hollywood. Again, either the podcast, on the streaming service or on YouTube, and maybe they can get their big break. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Love you forever, and so will we.
Yeah. Now, something that we will not love forever, and definitely not loving right now, unfortunately, is coronavirus. It's getting worse. Yeah. It's spreading to more places, not only around the world, but here, of course, in the United States, and we're seeing direct impacts to the entertainment industry. Now, according to the Associated Press, the entertainment industry is bracing for potential shutdown in the coming weeks due to coronavirus and its pandemic. The virus's spread and dawning awareness of its reach has already forced the cancellation of all major imminent events on the calendar, including South by Southwest, CinemaCon, Coachella, vital television events like the NBA season, just breaking this.
It's unbelievable, unreal, James. Absolutely unreal. Never seen anything like this in our lifetimes.
Right, and one of the events that we were planning and hoping to attend recently, we just found out is canceled as well. Ace Comic-Con.
Ace Comic-Con, James. So yes, if you had listened to us before, James and I were planning to be at Ace Comic-Con. We were going to do our show from there. We were going to try to get a hold of Chris Evans, who is among one of the many A-list guests that were lined up for Ace Comic Con. We have pretty much the entire Thor Ragnarok cast was going to be there. A couple of the Hollywood Chris's. Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter series. It's just a fantastic lineup of performers that were going to be there, along with 30,000 guests, James, at the convention center there in Boston. However, we've had, in the past couple of weeks, it was a Biogen conference there in Boston, which the coronavirus, there were a number of people there who had contracted it and may have spread it there. And that's only the beginning. So Ace Comic Con canceled. Now, do you know if it's being postponed, rescheduled, or just straight up canceled?
That I don't know. I think it is straight up canceled, and honestly, with how things have been progressing over the past few days, I'm not surprised, because for Ace Comic-Con is a little different than normal, Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, as in they have, I think, a lot more events where a lot more meet and greets, and so people can individually meet these celebrities, meet these stars, their superheroes, get a picture, get an autograph on a one-on-one, one-on-one experience. And with the threat of obviously the virus spreading to more people, I think it just makes sense that you don't want to expose these top tier, superstar actors. And risk them meeting or interacting with people, unfortunately, who may have been contaminated as well.
If you were keeping an eye on the website, too, at one point they had said because of the coronavirus, people who had paid for photo opportunities with some of these celebrities, they had said that no hugging, no handshaking, no touching the celebrities at all. That was going to be their little kind of go-between, their fill gap there, but now everything just entirely canceled. So fortunately, people are getting their money back. They are being refunded, but that's a huge impact to the economy. There are 30,000 people. Think of all the hotels and things and restaurants that would have benefited from that. However, getting your money back, at least, that is a plus, because there are other events that have been canceled, James. There's the Ultra Music Festival in Miami. People spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to go there. No refunds. No refunds for Ultra. I don't know how they're getting away with that, but
there's going to be a lawsuit.
It's just unreal.
Yeah, and talking about how things are being canceled, we have many movies that are being pushed back. And not only movies, but the screenings that we were supposed to receive and to go to, so we can review those movies before they come out.
Bring it to you, our audience.
So I've been getting email after email after email today about movies being pushed back and screeners being pushed back as well. A Quiet Place 2. Quiet Place 2 was supposed to be coming out very soon. However, it's being pushed back. A date has not been determined. The same goes for The Lovebirds. Same for Fast and Furious 9, which is a international, juggernaut of a film franchise. That's being pushed back from May to April 2nd. So not too much of a big postponement, but again, one of the world's biggest, most popular franchises being pushed back because of coronavirus.
Well, absolutely. If you're one of these production houses that are putting these franchises together, you're not going to open up your big film to empty movie theaters.
Right.
Now you're just not going to do that. You're going to want to save your money until this all recedes. So it's like the entire economy is just taking a break. Everything is pumping the brakes. But we want to see our movies, James.
Yeah.
So some of these are postponed?
Yeah, a lot of them are. And I was actually supposed to see a screening for the new the other Vin Diesel movie, Bloodshot, that's coming out. That was supposed to be coming out, I believe, this week or next week. And last night got an email saying that the movie is being pushed back, I believe, to mid-April, and that's when that screening the week before. That's when they'll be rescheduling it. But that's as of right now. So right now, for these movies that are being moved to April, the plan is to open then. But again, right now we're looking at the coronavirus and the pandemic on a very day-by-day, sometimes hour-by-hour
I know.
base, and so it's very very unnerving, and just when we learned yesterday, right now we're recording this on Thursday, but on Wednesday night, right when President Trump was announcing that there was this new travel ban on European countries, not only did we learn that there was a travel ban being put into effect, we learned that the NBA season was suspended, and not only that,
and
we learned, Hank, brace yourself for this, Tom Hanks
No!
and his wife Rita Wilson, they're in Australia filming a movie. However, they've been diagnosed and confirmed to have a case of coronavirus.
Oh my God! Yes, the COVID-19, this novel strain. Not Tom Hanks.
I know.
Not Tom Hanks. James, he's been through so much already. He's been through so much. He's been a ship captain. He's crashed an airplane in the ocean. He's been, stuck on a desert island. Tom Hanks has just been through so much, and now he's going through something in real life, and we really hope that he's getting the best medical care that he can over in Australia, where he is with his wife. And the reason that he knows that he has the coronavirus is because he was in Australia, where the testing is readily available. It's very easy to get a hold of. So we very much hope that he is doing well. There's been an outpouring of support for him and for everyone who might be facing this, but not Tom Hanks.
Yeah, fortunately.
What was your reaction?
Well, fortunately, we've heard back. Colin Hanks, his son, also a very talented actor in his own right, he went to Twitter and said, thank you for the show of support and the show of love. He does say that his parents, though they aren't feeling great, they are doing well. They are in good spirits, and so they are being, they are following the medical procedures that you should follow, not only for coronavirus, but for any flu or any virus or any medical condition. So they are being seen, they are being checked out, and so our fingers are crossed. We send our best thoughts to the Hanks family as well too. But
Tom Hanks put out a message and said, they're taking it one step at a time, one moment at a time. And that's all they can do. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, if it takes, for the past 2 weeks or so, there are people who don't believe that the coronavirus is a big deal or is not as bad as as it's being reported, or they don't think that's really going to affect them. But then you hear somebody like Tom Hanks and his wife get infected. If it can happen to them, it can happen to you and me. So it's one thing to always to remember. Even though the risk of coronavirus spreading in Massachusetts and relatively, in most places in America, even though the risk remains low, things are getting a little bit worse, and we are expecting things to get worse according to
before they get better.
Yeah, according to top government health officials. And so you got to be on top of your own, hygiene.
Jeez.
Wash your hands. Cough and sneeze in your elbow or in a hanky. Get one. We need to bring back hankies. And
oh my goodness, we got it. Oh man, I feel like we could do something like that, like Tom Hanks hankies.
Ooh.
And raise money for coronavirus
Tom's
vaccines
hankies.
or something like that. I feel like that there's some kind of connection there that can be made, that can be capitalized on. Hankies.
Yeah.
Let's do it, James.
So we're wishing and sending our best for. Hey, you're coughing. No coughing. You,
oh my God.
You coughed in your hand. Cough in your elbow.
Oh my God.
What are we talking about? What were we just talking about? Okay.
I'm sorry, James.
So
I'm in my house.
Okay, so we've heard enough bad news related to coronavirus.
Yeah, we need some good news.
But we need some more. We need new good news.
Yeah. Okay, I got some good news for you, James.
Thank you.
All right, so we might not be seeing Chris Hemsworth, at the convention center like we were dreaming about.
Yeah.
I was dreaming about. I don't know about you, but we do have some great news about his future property, Thor 4. Thor 4, which is actually going to be starring Natalie Portman as a female Thor. We now know, according to reporting from comicbook.com, that Thor 4, directed by Taika Waititi, is going to have the Guardians of the Galaxy in it.
That's
huge. So
I think that's huge. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. So it's just going to be really cool to see these characters that haven't interacted as much, and by that I mean Nicole Kidman. Oh my goodness,
Natalie
Padme
Portman.
Amidala.
Yeah, Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's portrayal of female Thor. And I gotta tell you, what I'm really looking forward to is awkward Quill. I think that's what that character does best, is kind of the awkward back and forth banter, but I can see like the flirting back and forth between maybe Quill and a female Thor and her putting him in his place, and I'm just really looking forward to the dynamics in this movie. I love Taika Waititi. I trust everything that he does, and giving him more pieces to play with, it's just going to be so fun.
So you don't think Zoe Saldana is going to be coming back to reprise her role?
I'm sure she's going to be there, but I don't think that's going to stop Quill from making awkward comments about how nicely, how well she holds a hammer and swings a hammer and stuff like that, and to which he has to check himself. I can already see like the back and forth, and then Zoe giving him the glare. So yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where this picks up after Avengers Endgame. We know that, of course, and now I'm blanking on the actual character's name, but Zoe Saldana, her character, she doesn't, in this timeline, since after the reverse of the snap, she doesn't know who Peter Quill is, but she's been told by Nebula, her sister, that they have a relationship. And so it's going to be interesting to see, one, how she comes back, because at the end of Endgame, she kind of just leaves and disappears after the main battle. And then I like the, even though we were strongly hinted or given the idea that Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy would be interacting once again, but I like the confirmation, just because at the end of, again, Avengers Endgame, we see Thor and Rocket Raccoon leaving on a ship. And so you had the idea that they were going to be partnering up in some way or the other, but I love the apparent confirmation that Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor will be collaborating. So it seems like a very space-centric Thor movie.
Yeah, and they were talking about Christian Bale apparently almost definitely is going to be playing the villain in this. I need to do a little bit more reading on that. But Gamora, the name of the
Gamora,
character.
yes.
Gamora is the name of the character there. Yeah, and interacting with female Thor. Now, female Thor, is this a result of an alternate dimension?
Well,
how are we getting female Thor?
Natalie Portman's character, so she, again, I forget her character's name, but that's just for the fact that her character wasn't utilized that much throughout the Thor series. And so I'm sure she'll be coming back as herself, so there must be some sort of transformation. She must be taken to, I don't know, I don't know where they would take her, but I would assume that Natalie Portman is the same character person, but there's some sort of transformation if she becomes Thor, female Thor, or she gains powers somehow. Or if they want to try to deal with, Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness, if we are going into the world of multiverses, then as in the comics, there's a different version of Thor where Thor is female. And so they may try to play with the multiverse. If that movie, Doctor Strange's new movie, part 2, if that comes out before Thor 4, man, it's like these tongue twisters.
It is really hard to say. Like, I was saying this before we started recording. Say Thor 4 like 5 times fast. It's hard. It really is.
Yeah, so I'm very curious. They have plenty of material when they're referencing comics, plenty of material to work with to try to justify it. So I'm curious which angle, which avenue they're going to go with.
But I love that they've developed this in a way that, we can bring in the outer space and we can bring in the multiple dimensions, and now these stories can go in every possible direction and play with the timelines and things like that. They've set it up for themselves so that it can never end. It goes on and on forever, James.
And I don't know yet if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we will see.
Yeah, some people are on the fence.
I've seen people say that they believe, or they take Avengers Endgame as the final Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and so like they themselves, I'm sure they will probably watch other Marvel films, but they like, how that ended. A lot of people feel that that's where the Marvel Universe should have ended, with this one big bang. And I understand that argument, because, again, you don't want to, milk the cow dry. But, Disney's...
Beat the dead horse.
You know Disney, so they love doing that.
Yes, and it will never end. And one last note, Taika Waititi, I love everything that he has ever done. I was watching something really random that he had made in the 90s in New Zealand. It's everything that he does is always very colorful and different and weird and interesting. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing another Taika Waititi Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, my favorite Marvel movie. Of all of them. Mm-hmm. My favorite Marvel movie. I can watch it over and over and over. It is just very watchable and rewatchable.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite?
Oh, man. I mean, if you want to, I think my go-to answer would be Iron Man as the Marvel movie.
The original
Iron Man, and so...
Can't go wrong with that.
I don't think anybody would consider that a wrong answer. But for another movie that I really enjoyed, I really enjoyed Ant-Man. I really enjoyed just
really?
I enjoyed it. Not I wouldn't say it's the best Marvel movie, but in terms of enjoyability and watchability too.
Yeah.
I like watching Ant-Man just because they do, even though there are big things going off on this corner of the world, they're just focused on their own little mission that they're trying to accomplish. And I like when the stakes aren't always, the end of the world. I like it where,
it's more relatable.
Plus, Paul Rudd, he's hilarious.
Yeah, and he doesn't age. So.
Yeah, and I'll throw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 as being one of the movies up there on that list of top Marvel films.
Best soundtrack.
Oh, definitely. Oh my, yeah. I remember that movie came out. The soundtrack was the talk of the town for weeks. Yeah. Great soundtrack.
Yeah. I still have it.
Yeah.
Woohoo! And then, so as far as that is something to look forward to. Wonderful. Can't wait. And something else to look forward to. The Marvel of underwater photography.
That'll work.
Am I
perfect.
selling it?
That's
Am I
perfect,
selling it,
actually.
James?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So Ancient Caves. This is a 40-minute documentary. Now, don't quote me. 40 or 50-minute documentary. Sorry, Art. But it's a documentary that's coming out and being released to museums and science centers to be shown in a dome. So the screen is pretty much surrounding you completely, and you can see the wonders of caves. And our very own Art Cohen, who is one of our coworkers at WBZ News Radio, he is a writer and producer, and he's worked in films in years past, and over the years, rather. And his latest project is called Ancient Caves. And I was fortunate enough for him to sit down, come in, and talk about the project. And, he really goes into it. You could tell that he's really proud of this project. So I'm really looking forward to when it does reach theaters closer to Boston. Here's my interview with Art Cohen. Joining us here in studio is Art Cohen. Not only are you a WBZ anchor for us as well, but you're also a writer and producer, and I guess most recently a part of this Ancient Caves project. Art, thank you so much for being on the Hub on Hollywood.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So tell me really quick, before we get into Ancient Caves and everything about it, can you give me a little bit of your background and what got you interested in producing and writing for, types of projects like this?
Wow, that's a great question. I have to think way back to when I was a young man. I became interested in radio for some reason when I was a kid. It may be that a local DJ here in Boston, a very popular DJ named Ronnie Ginsberg's brother, lived down the street from us, and it was like a big thrill every time he came over, and I was kind of fascinated by radio. So that was the first part of it. The other part of it, I was fascinated by history, and I thought, how do I combine those two? As I got into college, I began to think about that, and I thought, well, being a broadcast journalist would allow me to do some radio and television and also do journalism, and so that's what I did, and I started back after graduating from University of Massachusetts in 1969. I had been working at the local public radio station on campus as a paid employee, and they offered me a full-time job.
That's rare.
I know.
Paid employership.
Well, this was not a student station. This was a professional-operated public radio station on the campus of UMass. There was also a student station there, which I occasionally worked at, but that didn't pay. But the other station paid. I had a shift. I think we got paid $3 an hour.
Nice.
This was 1969. That was a lot of money back then.
That's good money.
67, something like that. And so when I graduated, they had an opening, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to start a news department." So I began a news department there, and I've been in broadcasting in one form or another ever since. I did radio for a while. I worked into public TV. For many years, I was a reporter and a producer at WGBH-TV in Boston, the public TV station. We had an evening news show called the 10 o'clock news, and I was a reporter, an occasional fill-in anchor for that. Did that for a number of years. Went on to make local documentaries for WGBH for several years, and then, as always, funding runs out, things change, you move on. So that's how I got started in the business. And in one way or another, I've been bouncing around between broadcast journalism and filmmaking in one fashion or another, because documentaries are basically films. Ever since.
And documentaries. I love a good documentary, and now we'll talk about Ancient Caves, but really quick, do you have a favorite one that you're watching right now? Anything that people should catch on to?
I just finished watching a 4-part documentary series called The Fourth Estate, which followed behind-the-scenes New York Times reporters and editors covering the White House. And it was like 4 hours of very interesting, if you're interested in journalism at least, it was a very interesting 4 hours. You learned a lot about how the New York Times worked. It was very dramatic. A lot of dramatic things happened in the news over the last several years, and watching them deal with the various issues that they faced as they tried to cover it was pretty interesting. So that's a film that I just watched quite recently.
Nice. So let's talk about why you're here. Ancient Caves. This is directed by Jonathan Bird, narrated by Bryan Cranston, written and produced by Jonathan Bird and yourself.
And me, yes,
yourself.
I'm a co-producer. I've been working with Jonathan Bird for 25 years. He's an underwater cinematographer and naturalist. He's kind of a genius in a way. He really is very good at everything he does. And we've made a number of documentaries together. We made a film about manatees. We made films about sharks, several films, shipwrecks. We've done a bunch of different things. Over the years, we've traveled to interesting and different places working on those films, mostly for television. And a few years ago, we started making a series, a half-hour series that was on public television for a while called Jonathan Bird's Blue World. And that has now evolved into a website called blueworldtv.com, where there are dozens and dozens of short segments, diving segments, that he has made all over the globe, some of them quite interesting, with some very bizarre underwater sea creatures and some very interesting and cute underwater sea creatures, and it's just very interesting. So blueworldtv.com. In any case, he became interested in underwater caves because he was shooting some underwater caves, and they are quite beautiful, and nobody ever gets to see them because they're very dangerous. Underwater caves are dark. You have to bring air. You have to bring light. You can easily get lost because there are many chambers and pathways. So very few people get to see them, and he got to see a few of them because he is a professional diver, and thought, wow, this would make a great movie for the big OmniMax screen. These are the big domed screens that many science museums have. They're much bigger than the regular IMAX. People get confused by it. These are enormous screens that surround you, so the image is huge. And he thought these caves are so beautiful that this would be a great film for that. So we worked on it. We discussed it. He came up with a story to go with it. He found some scientists who study climate, ancient climate, and they can use samples from these caves that they can analyze to find out what the climate was 100,000 years ago, believe it or not. And we explain how that happens in the film. So we combined the two. We said this will be a great adventure. It'll be a diving adventure into these beautiful caves that nobody except a handful of very skilled divers ever get to see. And we'll do some science about how scientists operate in this environment, and that's perfect for science museums. So we worked on it for about 4 years. We had to raise money, as you can imagine, that's a fairly complicated thing. We got some money from the theaters that run the films, some of the money Jonathan's company had from other projects. And it was a long, laborious process. We filmed in Mexico. We filmed in Nevada, in the desert. We filmed in the Bahamas. We filmed in France. And some of those, were months apart. So now 4 years, a little over 4 years later, the film is done, and it features a scientist, a young woman named Gina Mosley, who's from Britain, who works at the University of Innsbruck in Austria, and at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. And she studies ancient climate, and she uses samples from the caves to figure out sea level climate 100,000 years ago. She's trying to figure out how the climate changes, why it changes. All of it could be applicable today as we try to figure out climate change. So we follow her, and we also follow some divers that we organized to go get her those samples, because she can't dive in a cave either. It's a very dangerous thing. And so you get to dive in these caves, and they're really just quite beautiful.
So how do you write for a documentary like this? Have you ever dove into a cave? Or have you ever gone cave exploring before?
The funny thing is, and this is the funny thing, I don't swim and I don't dive. And I've worked with Jonathan for 25 years, and I don't go in the water. He does all of that, and I work on the story, on the script. I used to be the editor. I used to do all the video editing for the films. I didn't for this one. So that's our relationship. So I actually don't go into the caves. But he is a co-writer, and so we work together, and he experienced the moment. So he may write a first draft, and then I'll fuss with it a little bit and work with it a little bit until we get it just right. And it's a process. It's constant writing and rewriting and running it by people and getting comments and adjusting and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and how does Bryan Cranston fall into this, and how is it having him read your words?
Oh, well, that is amazing. That is wonderful. I was the narrator during the editing process, because you need a narrator to, put on the screen while you're editing to make sure everything works. So I was used to hearing the film with my voice in it. But we knew all along that we were going to have to get a celebrity narrator, because these films typically have celebrity narrators. And we actually went to, I understand, I wasn't involved in this. Our distributor worked on this, but some big stars did turn us down.
Do you want to call them out? I'm kidding.
I don't know if I should.
I'm kidding.
They're busy. They couldn't always do it. But somebody came up with the idea of Bryan Cranston, and he liked the film, and he was available and willing to do it. And so he agreed to do it. And we had to go to New Orleans, where he was shooting I still think, shooting a miniseries for Showtime. And he said, if you want me to do it, you got to come here. So we hired an audio studio in New Orleans. We flew down there, and he came over to the studio. It was a beautiful studio. I was a little nervous when we first, because I've been in some pretty cruddy audio studios. And we don't know New Orleans. We just, we looked one up nearby and hoped that it was nice. It turned out to be gorgeous remodeled, high-end audio studio. And so he came over. He sat with us for a few minutes, maybe a half hour. He had watched the film. He had read the script, so he was familiar with it, and asked us a lot of questions about how we filmed this and how we did that. And then he went into the recording booth, and it took about 90 minutes to go through a little over 100 lines. Mm-hmm. Every line was recorded separately. And we often had him do it 2 or 3 times. And I was directing him, which, what right do I have to direct Bryan Cranston? But it was our film, and I was the co-writer, so it made sense for me to direct him. And so sometimes I would say, can you pause a little bit between that word and this word? And he was great. Mm-hmm. I was I was shaking, telling Bryan Cranston, could you pause, please? Yeah. But he did. He got it. He understood it, and several times would say, oh, yeah, I get that. And then, so he would do it again, and he would almost always nail it. And then we always had him do another take just to be sure, and sometimes he would take it to a new place. It was even better than what we had suggested. So he was very efficient. It was just a great experience. And he was just a gentleman, really, really nice guy to work with.
Do you know if he's been able to see the final product?
No, he hasn't. I doubt it. I don't know how he would.
Well, I guess so, right? You'd have to watch it in the theater.
You really do have to watch. I mean, we could send him a video of it that you could watch but you can't appreciate it on the computer screen. You really have to be in the theater. The screen is so big it surrounds you, and the shots take you right into the cave. I mean, you feel like you're a diver. You feel like you're swimming in the cave. These images are so huge. Some people have said it made them feel claustrophobic. And the images are gorgeous. The main cave, we spend most of the time in a cave in the Bahamas called Crystal Cave, and it's just a little puddle in the ground. But when you start going into it, it's huge chamber after chamber filled with water. And some of them look like they're giant cathedrals with the stalagmites and the stalactites all over the place, different colors, forming amazingly lovely formations. There's one formation that looks like little roses, and it's just totally by nature, totally by accident. Mm-hmm. Another looks like giant tree trunks. There's one section of the cave that looks like the Fangorn Forest. We actually call it that in the film, or the people who discovered it call it that from Tolkien. And it's stunning. You can't believe that nature would form these beautiful things. There's one room where there's glass shards coming out of the ceiling that look like exploding stars, that look like a firework. Mm-hmm. It's just unbelievable, and you'll never get to see it except in this film.
And what's the hardest part of writing? I was going to ask for producing a documentary. I would assume the money is probably the hardest part.
The money is the hardest part.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about writing a documentary and writing for somebody else? I mean, you said that you recorded the original, I guess, script, a version of it with Bryan Cranston reading over it. Is it difficult to write knowing somebody else is going to be reading those words?
We didn't know who was going to be reading them as I was writing the script. The thing about a documentary like this is very, how can I put it? The language is minimal. There, when I did the first draft and we showed it to various people involved in the industry, our distributor, McGillivray Freeman, they said it's just too wordy. There's too much talking, and I had been working on television documentaries all my life, and you tend to write a little more for those kind of films, but for a theatrical film, they said you have to really scrape out every word. You have to cut down every sentence to the absolute minimum word. So I went back and I did a complete rewrite and just took out all kinds of wordy phrases and just got right down to the essence of what we were trying to say. And, of course, in a film, this is very different from other kinds of writing. The images are telling you part of the story. I don't have to tell you the divers are in diving gear, right?
Yeah.
You can see they're in diving gear. So part of it is saying as little as possible, just enough so that the audience knows what's going on, the context of the image, and then let the image and the action do as much of the talking as possible. So the script is a very, very tight script. There's not, and it took months for us to refine each line, and many of them went through many rewrites. And then this is the other fun part. At one point, I say it's fun. Not everybody will think it's fun. In Hollywood, there's never one writer. There's always, we had to get a writing doctor. Well, so the distributor said, you guys need a writing doctor. So I felt terrible. I said, what? I thought I knew what I was doing. Why do I need a writing doctor? Well, it turns out that this company always hires this guy to come and polish their scripts, and they wanted us to as well. And this was when I did the whole rewrite. This is when I knew we had to tighten the language and tighten the script. So I did that, and they hired a guy named Don Hahn. I didn't know who Don Hahn was, but they hire him all the time. They pay him fairly well, and we got on the phone with him for a pre-conference, and we're chatting. And he said, while we were waiting for one other person to join the meeting, he said, well, I just got back. This was probably fall sometime, maybe summer. It was a while ago. I've lost track of it. He said, I just got back from the music session for The Lion King, the live-action version of the film, which was being made last year. And I said, what's your role on The Lion King? I hadn't heard of this guy.
Yeah.
He said, oh, I'm the executive producer. So I almost fell off my chair.
Yeah.
And it turns out he works for Disney. He's produced many of their animated features, and is the guy who first came up with the original Lion King. He produced that, convinced people to make it, of course, one of the most successful animated features of all time. Mm-hmm. So here I was on the phone with a top Hollywood animation producer and obviously a person who's considered a really great writer. So I felt, okay, this guy knows a lot more than I do. I would like to see what he does with our script. So he took the script, he made a rewrite of the script, and we went through it line by line, and we kept about 2 or 3 of his lines and discarded the rest.
All right. Oh, of course, because you know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me ask, because with this documentary being shown on a dome screen, was that Jonathan Bird's decision, or was that, eventually throughout the process he thought, filming this will give filming it this way in this fish lens style, this would give the audience the best experiences if they're there? Or was that the original plan the whole time?
That was the original plan. From the beginning, he said, these images, these caves are so beautiful, they're so amazing that the only way to do them justice is on the big dome. And he'd always wanted to make a film for the big dome. There are many reasons why this would have been difficult just a few years ago, because most of these films, almost all of them, and there are many wonderful films. The company who distributed our film did a film about climbing Mount Everest a few years ago that's quite stunning. And they're shot on film with these huge cameras, these big IMAX cameras. They're 70 millimeter wide film, which is twice the size of normal film, because you've got to blow it up so big. And the cameras are big and they're noisy, and you can only put 3 minutes of film in them at a time, and then you have to change the film. And so they've always shot with that. But to take these underwater, you can take them underwater, and many films have been shot underwater with these cameras. But you have to drag them back on the boat, change the film. You need 2 or 3 of them to keep going. You can only shoot for a few minutes at a time. Well, what Jonathan, he's a superb digital cinematographer, and he's been working with the Red company, which makes Hollywood cameras.
Very nice cameras.
Yes,
yeah.
They make some of the best cameras, and we had one of them, and we shot one film with them, and he got to know them quite well, and we learned a lot from it. And then they came out with this new camera called the Weapon, the Red Weapon. It's an 8K camera. So regular TV is 2K, theatrical projection is 4K. This is twice the quality of theatrical projection at 8K. And because it's digital, you just put a chip in it. You don't have to change the film. You just have to have enough battery. You can go underwater for a couple hours and shoot. And that was the only way we could make this film. So we were the first people to say we want to make a film digitally, not on film. And the distributor said, you can't do that. Digital isn't good enough. It won't work. And the people who were giving us the money said, you can't do that. No one has ever made a film using just video. It's not good enough. And we insisted that it was. So we did a test with this 8K camera. We put it out to film from the video, and we watched it back in the theaters, and everybody said, wow, this looks pretty good. But even better now, most of the theaters are converting to digital projection. This was very difficult on the big screen. Regular movie theaters have been digital projection for quite a few years now. Nobody projects film anymore. But the big OmniMax theaters continue to project film because they didn't have a projector that could make that big and clear an image. But IMAX has now come out with a digital projector based on laser light. And so now our film doesn't have to be converted to film. It can be played directly from the digital file, and it's gorgeous on the big screen. And so now everybody, we started it, and now other people who make these films they've discarded film. They're now starting to shoot like we did with the Weapon. And so we started a whole trend in this particular film genre. And, And, of course, shooting for the dome is very different because you have to look up to see some things. And in our film, you're forced to look up sometime to watch somebody rappel down. and you literally have to move your head because you couldn't catch. The screen is so big.
Yeah, one of the locations where the documentary is screening is the Museum of Science here in Boston, and I've watched several documentaries on the dome screen, and I love it because I love it, and not that I hate it, but it is you do have to get used to training your mind when you're watching that film to move your head left and right to see all the everything that the camera's capturing, and it's beautiful, and it is a really great experience.
It requires, and I should start that again. Jonathan is really good at figuring out where he wants people to look. So he has some shots where, you have to look up because there's action up there, and you look up and you watch somebody come down a rope, or you have to look over there, and he's very careful to make sure that the center of the action is in front of you. And you have to watch the upper part of the screen because if the sky is too bright, it lights up the theater and reduces the visibility of the film. So you have to play all kinds of tricks with this huge image, and he's really good at it. And then we had original music. We have been working with a guy for many years now, Bruce Zimmerman, and he wrote the score for this, and we decided that it needed an orchestra, so we had the budget, and he and Jonathan went off to Prague and hired a symphony orchestra, which performed the music. And it's really the whole thing is quite lovely. We also have some animation. And you can imagine doing animation for a screen this size. We hired somebody who specializes in this, and there's some lovely animation of the Earth spinning and ice ages forming, and it really all works. It's really quite amazing.
So let me ask you, after working on this project, are you more inclined to, or do you have an urge to go exploring?
Well, I'm not going to go into an underwater cave because I'm afraid of the water and don't swim, but maybe a regular cave. There are some regular caves here.
Yeah.
We do visit some dry caves in the film. But no, I love sitting at home in my bare feet writing. I love that process.
Yeah.
I love the idea of trying to figure out how to explain stuff to people and find the right language. And I love working with images. I love working with film, and I've been doing that most of my career in one fashion or another. And writing for film is writing, it's not just writing words, it's what is the story, what is the structure of the story, and the images are half of what you're working with. So you're choosing, as a writer, you're choosing what images to put with what words, because they work together in the best of all possible worlds. The images and the words make the whole scene bigger than the words or the images alone. And so as a writer of film, of a documentary specifically, you kind of edit it on paper along with the words you're writing, because the two things have to go together.
And then I imagine you also have to make sure you don't add words where the scene itself can speak for itself.
Yes, when you start out in this business, you always want to say, here underwater. Well, you're underwater. You don't have to say you're underwater. And after a while, you learn. Every now and then, you need to explain something which might not be clear without a little help. But you write as little as possible. That's the nature of a documentary.
Perfect. So I understand March 13th is when the screen, when more theaters or science centers will be screening them.
It opened in St. Paul at the Science Museum there, and they have a huge dome that comes down from the ceiling. It's really quite a thing to watch it come down. And it opened Friday, March 6th, and we were there. I haven't even mentioned Gina Mosley, who's our star. She's the scientist that we follow. She was there. She was signing autographs to school kids afterward, and she's wonderful. And she's throughout the film, and there are a few other people who are they're not actors, of course, but they're
characters.
They're characters in the film. We have Brian Kakuk, who's an expert cave diver, and Todd Kelly, who's one of our associates. He's actually our attorney, but he loves to dive, and he's in one of the scenes. And Gene is in all of them. Anyway, I forget what I was saying. It opened the 6th in St. Paul. We were there for it. It wasn't a premiere in the technical sense. We didn't have a premiere in the technical sense. I think they showed it to funders a few nights earlier. And then it opens Friday the 13th in Cincinnati at the Science Museum there. And then it's scheduled, and I don't have the date in front of me right now, for the Science Museum, a Science Museum in Kentucky. And other science museums have said they will schedule it. We don't have dates yet, and I think you'll see over the next couple of weeks or months, other museums will schedule it.
What was that reaction like? Because with you said Dr.
Dr. Mosley.
Yes. When she was there, she was signing autographs for kids.
Yes.
What was the reaction, not only from kids, but from people in general watching the documentary as it played out?
That was the best part. I mean, there were a few places where they were supposed to laugh, and they did. And there were a few places where they're supposed to go, oh, and they did. And yeah, the audience seemed to enjoy it. And it was interesting to watch the kids who were excited to meet her. For some reason, she seemed inspiring to them. So a lot of school groups watched these films, and so there were a lot of kids there. Yeah, it was really fun to watch it with the audience. I watched it twice with two different audiences, and they seemed to really be into it. You could hear a pin drop in the theater, and they're just totally glued to the screen.
Awesome. Well, Art, if anybody wants to keep track of this, find out where or when it's opening up close to them, where can they go?
Well, they can go to the McGillivray Freeman website, which is a little bit hard to spell. I think if you just type in Ancient Caves film, you'll come up with the schedule. You'll come up with their website, and they list all the places it's opening, and it will be opening gradually throughout the country. In Boston, it won't open till the fall, because they haven't installed their new laser projector yet, and they're waiting for that.
Letting that anticipation build.
Yeah, letting that However, I should mention that we're making a 3D version. It's being made right now, and it may be out in April, and it may have a wider release. I don't know how that will work, but you should keep your eye out for the 3D version. You should see both of them. They're going to be very different in terms of experience, but... yeah, we are making it. And we didn't shoot it in 3D, but they can digitally manipulate the images into 3D. And they're doing that. That's happening now.
Amazing stuff. Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. I have a Museum of Science membership, so I'll be definitely going, maybe seeing it twice. But yeah, I'm excited.
Well, I hope you'll come. We will have a big Boston premiere, and I don't know how many seats we'll have, but I hope you'll be one of the spectators.
I'll definitely let me know, and I'll be there.
All right.
And I'll try to bring a +1. But yeah, Art, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really do appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
All right. And Art wanted me to mention that since the recording, Ancient Caves opening in Cincinnati has been delayed a week because of, guess why? Coronavirus. And so it's now scheduled to open on March 20th. But I'm really looking forward to when Ancient Caves reaches Boston. It's going to be playing at the Museum of Science. Apparently, they're waiting for a new a dome projector or digital projector to come in to give the best experience. And so looking forward to that.
And I'm looking forward to Art giving me Bryan Cranston's number.
Yeah, I mean, how awesome would it be to work with Bryan Cranston?
So cool.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We love Art Cohen.
We love Art Cohen.
And we love our audience. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. So thanks again for listening to The Hub on Hollywood. If you haven't followed us on our social media platforms, please go ahead and give us a like, give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, podcast streaming services. Am I missing anything?
No, man. We're everywhere. Find us. Hub on Hollywood.
Awesome. Well, until next week, I'm James.
I'm Jamie. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, please. Bye.